Welcome to Fortress Power's webinar series, the Avalon Answer. In this webinar series, we will be discussing benefits of the Avalon, but not in the traditional way that we've done in the past, where we go really technical. We want to talk about the market. We want to talk about what makes the Avalon different, how you can stand out in the crowd as a business professional. So in this webinar, I will be the host, and my co-host is Brad. Brad, introduce yourself, let everybody know where you're from and what is your position with Fortress Power.
Yeah, so my name's Brad Ure. I started in solar in about 2016 in Utah. I grew up in Utah, did some installs in Colorado as well, mostly on the sales side, worked mostly with installers. Moved out here to Florida for some warmer weather, and I'm the Southeast Regional here. So excited to talk a little bit about kind of some of the market challenges and how we can kind of position ourselves using Avalon to gain an advantage and stand out a little bit.
So the reason why we put in our meeting the experts, because he's been doing this for some time now, as you heard him state, since 2016. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to introduce the webinar series and we'll get started. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. So we're going to get started on our presentation. So the Avalon Answer. So in this series, we are going to be discussing differentiation. So that's what this part one is about, differentiating yourself. The next in this series is expand your market with the Avalon and then streamline your installation. So when you view the Avalon system, it's comprised of three components and we'll go through all three of them. It's the Avalon inverter, the Avalon smart energy panel, and the Avalon battery. That makes up the Avalon system. And when you have the Avalon system, this is how you begin to differentiate yourself, because this is an innovative product that brings a lot of different things to help provide solutions to the market. So the Avalon Answer, point number one, differentiate. In what ways can the Avalon help installers differentiate from the competition? Brad, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll do an overview of like all of the tech features and capabilities and all the spec sheet stuff that you expect to see. But when we kind of took a step back and looked at everything, especially with the way the market's trending, we have California with NEM 3.0 coming on board. So batteries are kind of exploding there a little bit, even though the market trend for number of overall permits seems to be going down a little bit. We have rising dealer fees, interest rates that are kind of hurting the ownership options. So we're seeing third-party ownership starting to tick up a little bit. We're seeing some of these different trends, but one thing that we've seen across the board is a lot of the proposals that we're seeing, they all look the same. They're all using the exact same options. And so installers, in a sense, have started to commoditize themselves. And so, for example, I went out with an installer a couple weeks ago, and we were talking with a client. They had 7 quotes, and out of those 7 quotes, there was 2 different battery manufacturers that were quoted, 3 different panel brands, and 1 inverter brand. All of them use the exact same inverter. And so we're seeing on a lot of these quotes, it's becoming harder and harder as an installer to kind of set yourself apart. And the Avalon, just with its unique makeup, how it's plug and play, it has has the PV inverter, it can DC couple, a couple different things like that. We're seeing opportunities in the market to really be able to differentiate, so you don't get in this commoditization game as you go and you compete, and you give your sales reps a little bit more ammunition because it's a different product and it has some key strategic advantages.
So one thing I want to talk about in differentiation, and this might be something that people just assumed is a standard, and a lot of batteries are going towards this way, but the Avalon, one differentiating factor. It's a lithium ferrophosphate battery, LFP chemistry, and it has 8,000 cycles and a 15-year warranty. So that's one thing that can help you distinguish yourself in the field or looking at other products is the cycles and the warranty of the Avalon system. So that is one differentiator right there that may seem trivial, but it is a big thing because when you have
Oh, okay,
batteries
cool. I
with
see it
all
now.
of these
Good.
markets that you have going on, you have the ability to basically use the battery to generate money through different marketing programs like demand response, time of use rates, all the type of things that you can do with the Avalon battery because of the high life cycle. So that's one of the things that I say is a differentiated piece in the Avalon. That's just one of the differentiated pieces of the Avalon. What's another part of the Avalon battery system, Brad, that you see as a differentiating piece?
I think we're starting to see a lot of different trends in the market. I mean, when we step back and we take a look at, what batteries are being quoted out there, what options are being quoted out there, we really see anywhere between 3 to 5 brands that make up 95% of the battery market. And one common thing between all of the brands is almost all of them are AC coupled options. So for example, we have like the Powerwall, which is now moving to more of a DC coupled, but primarily AC coupled in the past. They're moving to DC. We have Franklin and Phase, both AC coupled. We have SunPower AC coupled, and those are really the major battery brands that are taking up, I'd say, 90 to 95% of the battery market, as far as if we look and see what brands are on these permits. And there's really a gap in there to kind of set yourself apart with a DC coupled option. Like I said, we've already seen Tesla kind of move this way. But one thing that kind of sets the Avalon apart is the smart energy panel. And Michael, if you want to jump ahead on the slides, it might be a good time to kind of go over the different elements of the panel or the system. So
Absolutely.
just skip ahead a little bit. We'll come back to this. But just for the sake of explaining here, so this picture here, we've got the 3 components in it. They're kind of faded out a little bit. But the Avalon does come with one of 2 inverters, a 7.6 or an 11.4 kilowatt inverter. 4 MPPTs, built-in rapid shutdown receivers that work with Tigo AP systems. Then we have the battery, stackable format battery. You're probably seeing a lot of manufacturers are starting to move to the stackable format. And then in the middle, we have the smart energy panel, which, like I said, it really kind of differentiates the Avalon system and how it operates. Now, in the smart energy panel, it gives you a place to land the PV breaker for your inverter. It has a breaker spot for a car charger. It has a breaker spot for a generator, and then it has 12 smart circuits for smart load control. So it allows you to eliminate critical loads panels, makes installation a lot easier. It's also worth noting that this is a service entrance rated panel. So Michael, if you want to go to that 1-line diagram, that might kind of help illustrate kind of how things are flowing here. So here we have well, Michael, you're an engineer. I'll let you kind of walk through the 1-line here. You'll probably explain it a little better than me.
So one feature that I want to point out, and when we say differentiating, and he mentioned the word service interest panel. When we say service interest panel, we're talking about the means to transfer over that 200 amp from that main panel, and then also be able to have a means of disconnect. So when you have the Avalon system, if you look at this right here, hopefully you can see my mouth moving. You have a 200 amp breaker that you can put inside the Avalon panel. Now, when we give you the smart energy panel, we do not include the breakers because we ultimately don't know what size is your main service panel, because it could be 150 amps. Some older installations possibly could have a 100 amp panel, but in most new installations, we're looking at a 200 amp service interest rated device. So you put a 200 amp panel inside of this, 200 amp breaker inside of this panel. So now you have a means of disconnects. So how does this help you? Well, when you are dealing with new installations, if you have a 200 amp disconnect inside of this smart energy panel, it allows you now not to have to mess with your main service panels. Why is this a benefit? When you are consulting and going inside of your main load center, generally that's what we call them in a home load center. When you're going inside of your main service load center, if you do any upgrades to that panel, then you have to upgrade the feeder breakers. This would be these downstream breakers. So if you have a house, and let's say hypothetically you just have a standard thermal magnetic circuit breaker, then you would need to upgrade that to the current natural electric code. So in most instances, at least where I'm at, they required arc fault circuit breakers or combination breaker devices. What is the significance? So the significance in is that it's a standard thermal magnetic breaker generally would cost you $5 or less. If you go to a combination arc fault device, you're talking about a breaker that costs $35. So you're talking about substantially increasing the cost of the panel. Then in addition, if you had to mess with your main load center, upgrading the service could cost you anywhere between $2, $3 to $5,000, just depending on the type of panel and the age of the panel that you have in the house. So when you go with an Avalon system, having our smart energy panel eliminates all those cost factors, because now you can just get a 200 amp rated main breaker for the service interest panel from your load center, and it allows you now to bypass those additional costs. So that's one feature in addition to being AC or DC coupled that allows us to stand out in the crowd, is that we now eliminate the need for a main panel upgrade, because you can use a service interest rated smart energy panel as a means for combination, combining your devices.
Yeah, so the basic flow and the basic overall installation is you have your main that goes straight up through a couple CTs right here built into the smart energy panel. And so your main ties straight in. You have a spot for those PV breakers. So for the inverter, so the inverter connects over and lands in the panel straight on a 200 amp bus bar. So it is a 200 amp pass through, regardless of whether you have the 7.6 or the 11.4. But a lot of the special sauce is going to come down here in the breakers, or the relays, I'm sorry. And if just right below the screen there, you'll see these relays, and you can set up to have automatic load shedding, so that when your sales rep goes in and they promise them a full home backup experience, they're not completely lying. They are having full home backup with smart load management. And so the heavy loads, the water heater, the HVAC, the heavy loads that the system may or may not run during that power outage, depending on how they size it, will automatically shed during that power outage situation. And then the homeowner will have control ultimately during that power outage. If they decide that it's just a brownout and they want to fire up the AC, they have enough, or they have a big enough inverter to do that, they're running the 11.4, then they can go ahead and opt to turn on that AC unit. They don't have to worry too much about their battery lasting. Whereas if it's, they're in Florida, hurricane just came through and they want that battery to last for 3 weeks or more, then they can let that load shed, and they can just rely on those critical loads that aren't shedding during that power outage. So it
So one
really,
thing I want to interrupt and interject real fast, because before we're talking about the load shedding devices, but while it's on the top of my mind, and excuse me, audience, for interrupting, but this is part of this conversation. We talked about eliminating, service interest upgrades. But another key feature about having a 200 amp pass through, and we're talking about upgrades, is that your main panel, as Brad was talking about the relays down here at the bottom, your main panel now essentially becomes your critical load panel for you. So you don't have to now wire a second sub panel. if that was the case. So when you have a 200 amp pass through, it allows you not to have to wire a secondary panel, and you're able to really manage your circuits because the relays is now allowing you to shift the load. So when he had mentioned the appliance circuits, or you're talking about your power circuits, we're really talking about single pole breakers, right? So your single pole breakers typically are going to be your 20 amps. And then the relay capacity that we have in this Avalon Smart Energy Panel, you have the option to control up to 12 single pole circuits and two 6 pole circuits. So Brad, what is the size of the relays that is built inside of the Avalon Smart Energy Panel?
So the relays are 50 amps for each 2-pole. So it's 12 single pole or 6 double pole circuits. And that doesn't include relays and smart circuits for your EV charger and your generator integration as well.
So when you look at this as a feature, just so everyone understands, I don't want to go too fast. So you have a smart energy panel that allows you to eliminate the need to really rewire your service interest rated load center, because you have the 200 amp breaker that you can add to this panel. Again, if you have a load center that has a smaller amperage, like 150 amps, you can put a 150 amp breaker inside the panel. In addition to that, he mentioned the power circuits. So you have this 200 amp breaker right here, but these are your power circuits. Many times when you're dealing with someone and they're looking to bring things to their home, as far as their load centers, oftentimes the load center is full. When the load center is full, you have to figure out a way how to reconfigure and make space for these power circuits. The power circuits that Brad had mentioned was an EV. So there's a spot in the smart energy panel where you can put the larger breaker inside of this smart energy panel to allow you to do combining. There's a spot for your inverter to do the combining, and there's a spot for your generator. So when you're talking about the smart energy panel, and Brad had mentioned it, we said the special sauce, but it really is the special sauce because it allows you to eliminate the need to wire a separate critical load panel, because now essentially you have your power circuits. You don't have to reconfigure this load center. You just put those power circuits, those 3 circuits, you put them on this side of the smart energy panel, and you can add a breaker here up to 200 amps as well. So this has a 200 amp bus capacity in the smart energy panel. Then you can control those circuits through the load shedding management functions down here of your 3 power circuits that you wired, and then the 12 single pole or 6 double pole circuits. They are the loads that you are now managing and shifting, and you're just wiring from your load center. You want to add anything to that, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly off topic, but also on topic, because right there you'll notice that there's an LCD screen in the smart energy panel as well, kind of built in to help for easy, fast commissioning. The goal is always to make sure that we can commission systems in under 15 minutes, including all of the smart features as well. So there's that integration, but then on top of that, that allows us to have Bluetooth integration. So if you have customers that are completely off grid and they want to control their loads during power outage situations, or let's say they are in a hurricane area, storm area, something like that, where the internet's probably going to go down during a power outage. And the Bluetooth here allows them and gives them control even during that outage. And then on addition to that, just like with all of our Fortress products in the past, we don't require internet connection for warranty service. So after the warranty is registered, they don't have to maintain internet connection. So this is great for complete off-grid sites. It can be on-grid. It's really one solution for many different applications. Now, Michael, if you want to go, I think on the next slide we have a picture of a recent install. And this just kind of goes down to the simplicity of the looks of the installation itself. So this system was about a 7.6 DC system. So they've got actually the 7.6 inverter. The PV on the roof was between 7 and 8. They were right around, I think, 7.5. But they've got the inverter here and then the smart energy panel. Now, these are the conduit runs that go back into the garage. They did all the conduit behind the wall here. And then here's the battery over on the other side. So you don't have a lot of extra boxes out here. You just have the inverter, the smart energy panel, and then the disconnect that jurisdiction or that AHJ requires for the project. And then over here, we've got the battery. This is a 20 kilowatt hour battery. This top unit, it's missing an end cap there, but that's the BMS, or the battery monitoring system. And then down below each of those lines, that's a 4.9 kilowatt hour battery. And they just stack one on top of another. And they weigh about 94 pounds a piece, so nothing too crazy. And they just link together over here on the side. And then for the cold climates, it does have built-in heating, passive cooling. It is outdoor, IP65 outdoor rated. This one we put in the garage naturally here. So like I said, here's kind of an example. These are all the boxes. Up here, there's actually one more box that got cut off. It's just the battery disconnect breaker. Once again, just something the jurisdiction required. But one of the advantages to going DC coupled, it's not just efficiency. So this is a DC coupled system. And so it's round trip efficiency with the batteries about 95%. So compared, go ahead.
I was going to ask, so why does that matter? You mentioned that 95% round trip efficiency, but a DC couple rated system. What is the significance of having that level of efficiency?
Yeah, that really matters in any utility area where they're going to be cycling their batteries. So this particular system is installed in Duval County in Florida, and there they don't have net metering. So they are going to be cycling this battery every single day. And so what that means is that let's say, for example, they produce 1,000, well, that's really high. Let's say 100 kilowatt hours that day. Naturally, it's not going to hit that high because of the PV size, but just for the sake of math, 100 kilowatt hours and 100 kilowatt hours is cycling through the battery. That means they're going to get 95 of those kilowatt hours. And so when they're modeling that throughout the year, that's a pretty good number, retaining 95% of their energy. If they had AC coupled with another option, most AC coupling gives you about 85% efficiency, which now means in that AC coupled option, to get the exact same amount of energy, they're going to have to expand the PV size by 10%, and that naturally starts to add up. And so, for example, in that AC coupling situation, they would only get 85 kilowatt hours with the exact same system, because that energy that goes through the battery, every time we convert energy, we lose energy. So on the DC side, it gives us that extra boost, that extra efficiency.
So just kind of going back to our original theme, I'm a back up some slides because I just want to kind of point this out because we've been talking about a lot of different things here. So let me just go back to our main slide. Forgive me as I go through the quick slide here. So we talked about part one, the Avalon answer, and we talk about differentiation. What ways can the Avalon help installers differentiate from the competition? So one thing we mentioned was the 8,000 cycles, 15-year warranty. You mentioned this, but I want to make sure I really make sure that this point stands out. It's an outdoor rated battery, IP65, and it has an integrated heater built inside of the batteries. What is the significance of having that built inside of the batteries, Brad?
It really depends. I'm down here in Florida, so for us, there's not a lot of significance. But, I do cover up into North Carolina. I am from Utah, Colorado. And being able to maintain the temperature of the battery cells inside of the battery is essential for longevity. And so, for us to be able to put this in a cabin out in the woods without external parts to heat the batteries, it wouldn't do very well without those heaters. The cold would basically kill the batteries, right? We see all these news stories on electric cars and their reduced range because of the cold, or they stopped because of the cold. And these built-in heaters will keep these batteries in the proper temperature range without any third-party part. It's all integrated into the battery itself.
So that is 15-year warranty, right? We talked about the heater helps extend the longevity, meaning that you can actually meet that 8,000 cycles or 15-year warranty. So it's going to help you do that. Another thing that you mentioned was the modularity of the device. You mentioned 94 pounds. So what are some of the benefits of having a stackable modular battery? What benefit would that provide to an installer?
Yeah, a lot of that is really to save time on the job site, and also to save customers money. So, for example, if there's a lot of batteries out there that come in about 14 kilowatt hour blocks, they weigh 300 to 500 pounds. They take an entire team to hang up on the wall. And if a customer wants to go and needs a little bit more than a 14 kilowatt hour battery, they now have to add a completely second battery at 14. So they have to scale in 14 kilowatt hour blocks. So it's a disadvantage to the sales rep at the sales table, because to go any higher than that 14 kilowatt hour limit, they have to almost double the cost of the battery. It's a disadvantage to the install teams, because now you have to send extra guys out to hang these heavy batteries up on the wall, and then also a lot of times reinforce the wall to make sure that it can handle the weight. Um, and then, like I said, just from an ease of install standpoint, um, it's just stacking these batteries one at a time and connecting the ends. And so you really can have probably a two-man crew still. I mean, most people are going to run two-man crews, but a very simple, quick process. That one in Jacksonville I was on site for, and they installed the battery in about 15 minutes. And so that did help them cost savings as well for the customer.
So you're talking about a lot of different benefits when we look at the Avalon series. You're talking about being able to save costs because one, uh, you can add in smaller blocks, so you don't have to add a whole new large battery bank. So that's something that is very, very important in terms of cost. Um, Also saving in costs, you don't have to worry about rewiring a service interest rated main panel. So that's another way to save. Also, the heater, having a heater does help with the longevity, and you're not buying something external, adding to the battery system, because this is actually part of the Avalon battery. The other thing is combining your loads. So when we're talking about combining loads, I'm mentioning how you could bring in that PV breaker. You don't have to rearrange your main load center. You can bring in an EV charger breaker. You can bring in a generator breaker. And then helping really the homeowner, not really the installer, is having a DC couple solution that is able to be very, very efficient. So right now, if we go to this hashtag, the Avalon answer, it seems like it's answering a lot of questions and it's providing a lot of solutions. And we haven't really got deep into this conversation on some of the differentiating factors. So I think the Avalon is fitting in very nicely. And one thing that we didn't mention, and I would like for you to speak to this, Brad, what would we consider this? A high voltage system, a 48 volt system? We didn't mention that. So can you just expand upon that and talk about that for the audience, Brad?
Yeah, so one thing we started to look at when developing and coming out with a new product is kind of where the market's at. And like I said before, if we look at 95% of the market, they're using one of 4 or 5 brands, which means the rest of the brands out there, which was including us at the time, are mostly 48 volt. Now, one thing that's happened in the 48 volt market, a lot of it's because the 48 volt is very popular in the DIY community, but it's made it a little bit tougher for installers to compete directly with some of these other mainstream brands like Enphase and Tesla, because all of the materials that you're quoting are easily found on online stores and they're kind of plastered everywhere. And so, like I said, when we look at it and we say, okay, why is it that 48 volt products have had a hard time getting traction against the mainstream market, against the Teslas, against the Enphase? We know that it's definitely not because of capability. Many of you probably have some extensive experience with 48 volt products, including our line and other lines out there that have more capability than these mainstream options, and yet they still haven't been able to get that traction. And so, you know, when we sat down and analyzed it and said, okay, what's going on here? Why is the 48 volt ecosystem really not hitting it mainstream with these large installers or with these installers that are doing more volume? You know, a lot of the answers are speculation, of course, but if we look at it, a lot of these 48 volt lines, they lack an ecosystem, meaning the inverter and the batteries are a different brand, which, as we've seen with many other products and brands out there, especially with batteries, can lead to long-term problems. And so we started crafting out in our 48 volt line to create a more cohesive ecosystem so that we could clean up some of our service issues so that we could be a better service to our install partners. And then while developing the Avalon, we wanted to make sure that we did have that software control, meaning that the software that's running through the veins of our smart energy panel, that's controlling the inverter, that's controlling the battery monitoring system, that it's all a Fortress Power product, and that we can push those updates out remotely. And so that when there's a problem with one of our systems, when there's a problem with the battery's discharge, when there's a problem with the inverter, we're not having to get on the support line of our inverter partner. It's a Fortress Power warranty issue, and we can take care of that in-house and create that one homeowner app, that one platform, so that we can truly compete on the grand scale of the market, so that we can go after the other 95%, so that we can put you guys, our installers, in a position to actually go out there and win with a high quality product that has that full ecosystem and, quite honestly, has most competitive advantages. I'm not going to say it's perfect. There's always room for improvement, of course, but when you compare side by side to any of the mainstream options, we check almost all of the boxes. And so, like Michael was alluding to, that was a long answer to get back to your original question there, Michael, but this is a high voltage product, not a low voltage product. So it kind of fits in a different market segment, allows us to attack and look for a different and more, you know, a more common customer, and not dogfight for the 5% of the market that chooses 48 volt, but rather expand and be able to attack the other 95% of the market that wants storage. And so each one of these 4.9 batteries is 48 volts. And since our top unit is a BMS, we don't have a built-in BMS to every single battery, so that ends up helping us save costs. And so you'll notice if you price out our 48 volt or our 48 volt system versus our Avalon system, even though our Avalon system includes a smart energy panel and all these additional benefits, it's going to be priced extraordinarily competitive because we're able to save money on the BMS by having it control all of the batteries. And then we're able to use a high voltage inverter, which are also historically less than low voltage inverters.
So when we talked about a differentiating factor, this is something that I omitted, and I'm so glad that you so eloquently answered the question. Everything is owned by Fortress Power and the system. So that provides a high level of accountability. I like to say the highest form of love is accountability. So when you're buying the battery, the inverter, and the smart energy panel, which is doing your load shedding and AC, DC combining, depending on what part of the system you're putting in, you're not chasing down another manufacturer to get an answer. It's one manufacturer. And then you also mentioned the app. The Avalon app is another differentiating factor. So I just want to keep pointing out the word differentiation because this is part of the things that we wanted to mention is that the Avalon answer, how does it help you stand out in the crowd as a product? It helps you stand out. One, you have a brand that you can trust. A lot of times, you know, we don't mention this often, but I think it's worth pointing out. Fortress Power, we have been in the battery manufacturing market now for 8 years with over 50,000 installs, less than a 1% failure rate on our batteries. So we are a very proven commodity. And we have batteries installed in Africa. We have batteries installed in North and South America. We have batteries installed, I know Canada's in North America, but I wanted to distinguish Canada, mainland, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and we have batteries literally installed in Europe. So we have batteries all over the place. Why do I bring that out? Because what good is a warranty when you can't trust the people that are actually making the warranty? We've been in business for a long time. We've been doing this very successful for a long time. So that is a great track record that you can rely and depend upon because we really know what we're doing. So the Avalon is a 40, not a 48 volt system, but a high voltage 400 uh, volt system. The batteries, as Brad mentioned, they are stackable and they're put together in series. So you're building voltage as you stack the batteries. Brad, how many batteries can we have in a stack?
So it's up to 6 batteries in each stack. Now there are going to be some jurisdictions that you'll want to check with your AHJ. Some of them do limit battery stacks to 20 kilowatt hours. Um, but that's why with the Avalon, you can do 2 stacks per inverter. So you can still expand that system. And then in addition to that, up to 3 inverters per system. So potentially up to 6 stacks per system, 29.4.
And one thing that was brought to my attention that I wanted to show, just to kind of go segue backwards a little bit, but it's important. I showed one single line diagram, and my application engineer, my solution engineer extraordinaire, wanted me to show another diagram so that everyone can see that in California, sometimes they still will require you to wire in a critical load panel. So when I mentioned not having to wire in a critical load panel, we're still at the whims of the AHJ, the jurisdiction. Sometimes there's local codes that may require different things. So I'm going to bring this on the screen just so you can kind of see the diagram because I want to be thorough and complete and fair when I'm showing things. So this is, can everybody, Brad, are you seeing this on the screen? I just want to make sure before I start to describe.
Yep, I see it. Go for it.
Okay, so when we add this, this is just showing the existing main panel, and in California and some parts of California, they do require you to add a separate critical load panel. So it's not in all jurisdictions, but we want to be fair because again, we're still beholden to jurisdictions. They have the final say, even though we are the manufacturer and we try to do things by code. So I just wanted to show that and leave that there for you all to see it. So we talked about a lot of different things that differentiate, and we talked about the DC coupled, we talked about the combining of the smart energy panel, we talked about load shedding, the thermal capabilities because the heater is built in. Is there anything else about the battery system itself that can help installers in terms of differentiation with the system? Or we can go to another point, but I just want to lay that out for you, Brad.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I mean, we could honestly go through and talk about a lot of different features of this system. And we do have technical webinars that do that, and we'll continue to do that. But I think one of the big points with differentiation is the Avalon really gives your sales reps the upper hand in the home. There's a lot of, as batteries are becoming more and more highly adopted, like I said, especially with NEM 3.0 rolling through in California, we're going to see a lot more batteries industry wide, just because the industry does tend to follow California. We have different programs in like North Carolina coming online, coming up. We've got lots of utilities toying with the ideas of doing virtual power plants, different things like that. The Avalon does give a solution in basically all of those applications. But like I said, when your sales reps, what it really boils down to, when they are in the home with the customer, the Avalon really does give them not just a different product, but a product that adds more benefit to the homeowner and solves different problems for the homeowners. And we'll dive more into that in the next series, so I don't want to belabor that point. But the Avalon allows you to kind of expand your market a little bit and not just be a different product, but be a more effective product in a changing market.
So when we talking about differentiation, I know we had some prepared slides here. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. We have a few more minutes left in the webinar just to kind of point in a different mindset when we talk about differentiation and what it means and how it can help the installer, even the homeowner when having a differentiated mindset. So I'm gonna go to the next slide and allow you just to kind of explain on some of that, Brad. See here.
Yeah, so um, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the marginal gains approach, is what it's called. But before 2003, I mean, the British cycling team, they had some noticeable achievements, but they were kind of in a cycle where things would get really well. They'd win some medals. They got some really good athletes in. And then the next Worlds, the next Tour de France or the next Olympics, they would completely bottom out and they would wonder what on earth is going on with their program. So you could say in some ways the British cycling team was experiencing their own solar coaster where they would have periods where everything looked really good, really high, and then other periods where everybody was trying to figure out what was going wrong. And so one of the things that they did is they went and they were able to get some more funding. And if you want to go to the next slide there, Michael, with that extra funding, they brought in a guy by the name of Dave Brailsford. Now, Dave Brailsford, he was a notable, his title was performance director, and his job was to figure out how to break the inconsistent results of the cycling team. That was his entire purpose. And so he came in, and there's kind of a graph down there you can see they were able to go from a good cycling team to a great cycling team, where their results started to be more and more consistent under his performance direction, not just in the Olympics, but also the Tour de France and other major cycling programs. And so the way he did this was what he called the marginal gains approach. So if you want to go to the next slide there, Michael. Basically, hiring Dave shifted the entire approach to the cycling department in Great Britain. And even though naturally nobody's going to deny there are outside factors that kind of affect the solar market, there are ways as solar installers that we can find a level of consistency and basically raise that baseline, just like Dave Brailsford was able to do with the cycling team. And so what he did, like I said, he instituted the marginal gains approach, and he went through and he figured out how each cyclist was training. So what was their routine, what training methods they used, their nutrition. He made sure all of them were on nutrition plans. They went through all of the equipment. So the bike, they worked with the manufacturer. They redeveloped frames. They redeveloped tires. They worked on psychology with all of their racers, so they were in the right mindset. And they even worked on like some team dynamics. Even though cycling is mostly an individual sport, they still broke out. But what was noticed about the marginal gains approach compared to other approaches is it was not targeted on large sweeping changes in the cycling team. It was focused on finding the small things, and not just one or two small things, but every small thing where they could improve. So if you want to go to the next slide there, Michael.
So just so I can do my job as the moderator. So you're talking about British cycling. So someone might ask, what does this have to do to batteries? So we're going to go through this next slide so that we can make some correlation and make it make sense.
Well, and not just what does it have to do about batteries, right, Michael, but really what does it have to do about our installers? Because here in 2024, us at Fortress Power, it's not just the Avalon that's starting to set us apart, but we have a commitment and a dedication to improve the homeowner experience and improve the installer experience. Because at the end of the day, those are our main two target audiences, I guess you could say. You guys are installer, or we can't do this without you. You are physically installing our product. We need it to be easy. We need it to be fast. We need it to work. And we need it so that you never have to go back and visit that product ever again. And for our homeowners, we need to make sure that they are having a world-class experience on the backside as well. We need to make sure that they're understanding the product, that they're understanding its capabilities, that they're understanding what happens when the power goes out, what to do if something's not going right when the power goes out. And that's our task, and that's kind of some of the areas we as at Fortress Power want to make some marginal gains in. And so now that same principle can apply to you guys to exit the solar coaster and build out a more durable business. And so down here's kind of some potential areas you guys can maybe look at and find some marginal gains. and really get, like I said, raise that baseline so that when you feel like you're on the downslope of a solar coaster, it's actually a much higher baseline than what you've experienced in the past. So, as you go through and you look at your sales department, what products are you offering? Are you guys differentiated? Do your sales reps actually have a true advantage when they go in the home? In the solar industry, we have a tendency to commoditize ourselves, meaning we go in and all of our products are the same. All of our pricing is about the same. All of us tell the same story of, oh, we've all been in business for X number of years, whether it's true or not, everybody's saying the same thing. Everybody's moved to a 25-year warranty on everything all the time. And it's really made it tough to stand out in that crowd and that sea. And so what do we do? What do our salespeople do? They run to price. They say, well, we'll be cheaper then. And as you guys know, as business owners, that is a really hard way to live. That's a really hard way to sustain. And so go over your product offerings. Give your sales reps the tools they need to excel in the home. Not just, be one of the seven, but truly stand out, not just being the low price guy sitting there. So, go over your sales trainings, make sure they're efficient. They're going over the proper material. Bring in manufacturers. If you're working with us, give us a call. Let us come in. Let us do trainings. If you're not, still call us. Let us come in. We'll do some trainings on battery sizing. And, at the end of the day, if you're not using us, go out and find your manufacturers. Get them in your doors. Make sure your reps truly understand how these products work and get the manufacturer involved. Make sure your sales reps are communicating properly with your back office, with the customer. There's lots of bottlenecks, lots of kinks in solar operations where solar reps aren't providing proper communication to operations teams, which eventually leads to breakdowns in communications with clients, or vice versa. They're not communicating proper expectations with clients, which later leads to breakdown in operations. Have clear defined roles. With service departments, most solar companies right now that I've been talking to, service departments are growing. There's a growing need to service orphaned systems. You guys have seen the list of people who have gone out of business this year, and unfortunately, it's going to grow. Not everybody's making it out of this year. So grow that service department, have your processes down, and make sure you're profitable on service calls. Referrals, making sure you're building out referral programs. Once again, communication in the service department, processes. Now, when it comes to installations, make sure, 1% gains, right? So it can even be as simple as making sure your installers are keeping their trucks clean and taking a little bit more pride in their job each day. Getting to job sites on time, getting off job sites on time. Quality control before they leave, so you're not going back doing multiple service calls, trainings, different things like that. Once again, get your manufacturers involved, regardless of who that might be. Get a hold of your reps, get them in there, get them talking with your installers. And then lastly, there's definitely room to find some marginal gains in partnerships. And that's one thing that we're continually trying to do, is form partnerships to make your guys' life easier. Hopefully we've got some stuff coming up that'll help you guys out here shortly. But, reach out to finance partners. Don't stop looking. Sometimes it can get discouraging because rates seem to be going up everywhere, or you might be too small to get on somebody's list. Like I said, we're working on making some of that stuff easier for you guys, but continue to work with your finance partners, your distribution partners, use your manufacturer reps, use your manufacturer partners, and naturally lead partners as well, making sure that you're getting that constant flow of lead and your acquisition under control. So our invitation, like I said, is really to utilize us. We're going to continue to find marginal gains on how we can help you to grow your business. But then when you guys sit down to grow your business and evaluate your business, if you want to get off that solar coaster, go through each area and find those little small things. Like I said, it doesn't have to be sweeping changes, but find those little small changes to improve 1% in each of these areas.
Well, I would say, Brad, this is a great summarization of tools that someone could use to really enhance their business. You can grow in your sales, your service, your installation, your partnerships. I think all of these are key buckets that we all should evaluate because, there's a saying about boiling water. It's like 212 degrees. So 211, it doesn't boil, but at 212, the water boils. So 1 degree does make a huge difference. And I believe that adding the Avalon solution to your portfolio will help you stand out in the crowd because of all the things that we mentioned in differentiation, because it has the one manufacturer, the one hand that you're partnered with, because it has the long warranty on the batteries and the high cycles, because it has the modularity, so the cost of adding more kWh to a storage site doesn't add up, because you can DC couple, because you can add in breakers, because I sound like a repetitive robot, but there's so many because that the Avalon has, and that we'll go through and explore in this Avalon Answer series of webinars. So we really want you to win in 2024, and we want to partner with you to help you succeed. So I would really think about these slides. And one thing that I would like to say about Fortress Power, we're accessible. You can go to the website in the where to buy section and you will see this face on the screen. I'm not going to tell you if it's a pretty face or an ugly face, but you will see my face on the where to buy section. So you can access and get a hold of Fortress Power pretty much anytime via email, text, phone. So we want to help you. We want to know what you're doing. As Brad mentioned, we're working on different partnerships to make your life easier. If you need help quoting a project, we have partnerships with Open Solar and other companies that you can go and design your product offering. Brad, I'm gonna go to the next slide here. It looks like we got like a couple minutes left. I think Gio has done a great job answering questions in the chat, but we're gonna go to this next slide. So Brad, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've belabored some of these points here, so I'll be brief. But like Michael said, we really want to see our installers win this year. We really want to see our end users have world-class experiences and have, we don't want our customers, we don't want to see them being the feature of a news story because they were an orphaned install or because, their system didn't do what they were promised or anything of that nature. And so, part of that is making sure our installers are winning. And so we do have, our new product line. We are not, for anybody wondering, we're not sunsetting our 48 volt line. So if you love our 48 volt line and you feel free, continue to use it. It's solid. Like I said, it's not going anywhere. But we do have our product innovation this year with the Avalon, which will help, basically our installers attack new markets, attack in new ways, and be more competitive with some of the mainstream options. We do have a revamped training portal to go along with that. Michael's gone through a lot of work in that portal lately, making sure the videos are uploaded. You can go through, become a certified installer for the Avalon. And then we are offering on-site and remote sales training. So if you want us to come in and sit with your sales teams, do sales trainings, I'm available to go out on sales calls with your sales reps as well, whether they do remote or in person. I have lots of in-home experience as well. But if you have sales reps that are struggling to adopt batteries, struggling to size systems, whatever it might be, we can assist and we can help there. Because like I said, our end goal at the end of the day is to see you guys win.
Yeah, so when we talk about, I'm gonna start with the bottom point because, as Brad mentioned, we've been on the product innovation point with Avalon pretty much this whole time. On-site and remote sales training, we have been doing since January, Avalon Roadshow, where we've been partnering with our channel partners and going to sites and doing pretty much a live commissioning training where we walk you through the Avalon system with the smart energy panel. So this is something that you should be on the lookout for. You should see it on our LinkedIn. You should see it on our Facebook. If you're not constant contacts, you should see that in our email. So we are doing roadshow trainings. We're going around the country doing it. I know I just was in Vermont. There was one in Albany, New York. There was one in Tampa. They've pretty much been all over the place. They've been in California. I know we're going to Texas real soon. So please be on the lookout for that. A revamped training portal, logging on to the training portal. I'm going to just go through a couple slides to get to the training portal. So here you go, training portal. This slide shows you can go to our website and go inside the training portal and you'll be able to access our Avalon online training. It's training on demand. It's done by our solution sales engineer. He goes by the name of Geo. He's doing a lot of the training. He's featured there, but you can really learn a lot on that training portal. This is also what it looks like when you go inside the training portal. You'll see something that says authorized dealer training, and then you'll see Avalon authorized installer training. Now, when you get inside the Avalon authorized installer training portal, what you need to do is just take the certification class if you want to test your knowledge to become a certified installer. So becoming an Avalon authorized installer, we have that training portal set up. The classes are optional. You don't have to take all the classes. That information is indicated inside the portal. You'll see things like certified class, additional resources, but we want to have that as a one-stop shop for your learning experience. But if you want to go ahead and take the certified training class, you just click on it, pass the exam, and you're well on your way to becoming what we like to say is an Avalonian. So to be a full-fledged Avalonian, to be an Avalon certified installer, you have to complete the written exam and do a successful warranty install. Once you complete those things, you can hit a button and a certification certificate will be on its way to you. So that's some of our online training resources. This is looking inside the Avalon training resource bundle. As you can see over here, it says certification class, and we've made some changes. I'm constantly going inside of the class to add value and things to you. So it'll tell you how to order, it'll explain how the part numbers are gone. In the Avalon launch event, there's a message from our CEO, Gene Yu. There's also a message from our chief technology officer, the one who actually created the Avalon app, and he kind of walks through. If you want to know what's in the boxes, you can go through the Avalon walkthrough unboxing video. It has it in there. If you don't want to take the certification class, you can go through the Avalon product walkthrough. So we have something for everyone. If you want to just look, peek what's going on in the system, want to know why the Avalon was created, you can go through that. Everything has this course progress bar for you to take. And this is how you reach out to Brad. That's his information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off the presentation for the moment, and I'm going to look to see if there are any questions. Brad, would you care to add anything to the conversation at this moment?
I mean, just feel free to reach out. I mean, even if you're not in the Southeast, reach out to me. I'll get you in touch with who you need to be in touch with. And like I said, we're more than happy to do sales teams trainings, installer trainings, whatever support you guys need to make sure that you have a good experience there.
So we definitely appreciate you signing on to this presentation, and we do have a special offer. You know, there's a saying, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So what I'm going to bring up on my screen is something that I'm about to do, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to win. Now, I must make this caveat. All of Fortress Power's promos, right? They cannot be combined. So when we give you a discount, you use it one per order and not another per order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my screen and I'm going to walk you through a process. And there's something that I need you to do. You don't have to do this. This is free. There is no obligation, but I strongly suggest that you would want to do this. So we're going to give you an opportunity to save. And I'm looking over here because this is where the information is at. So let me just pull up this post that I want you to kind of chime in on and work with us. So let me see here. Here is my post. And this is just to make sure you're paying attention. You don't have to pay attention, but if you do pay attention, you do have an opportunity to do what we call winning. So here it is here. I'm now going to reshare my screen. So I'm going right now to LinkedIn. I'm taking this post, right? My name is Michael Gibson, and I approve this message. So we're going with the Avalon answer. That is what we got everything going on. So I'm going right now, and this is what I want to challenge you to do for an opportunity to get $1,000 off your first Avalon purchase. Now, in order for you to do this, I simply need you to do one thing. I'm taking this post, and I'm doing it right now, and this is good to the end of the day. So you got 12 hours to make this happen. Putting this post in here. It's going to show up my blog post. Hashtag the Avalon answer. Post. So I just made a post on LinkedIn. There you go. So if you go to LinkedIn and you share this post, and I will put it, you can email me at Michael Gibson or michaelg@fortresspower.com. But if you share my post off of LinkedIn, I will even go put it on Facebook. Sorry, I don't use Instagram. So if you share this post and you put in hashtag the Avalon answer, whoever shares this post and tag us, Fortress Power and Michael Gibson in it, will receive $1,000 off an Avalon system purchase. So you have to share the post. It is now 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that means you have until 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're not catching this live and you haven't gone in and get the replay, I'm sorry you have missed out on the opportunity. But for the 20 or so folks that has chimed in and watched and stayed into the end, that is the offer. So again, you take the blog post and you share it, hashtag Avalon Answer, and tag me in it. Again, it's on LinkedIn. You can find me, Michael Gibson. My face is all over. You can put Fortress Power, Michael Gibson. I will come up. So the only requirement to get this exclusive, the Avalon Answer giveaway, how to stand out in the crowd, is to reshare that post and tag myself in the post and tag Fortress Power. But that it concludes our session on the Avalon Answer. Hopefully you have found this beneficial. There are more sessions coming up, and we want you all to tune in. We want you to stay tuned for everything that we have to offer. Our next session is on February 27th. It's Expand Your Market. So we're going to take a deeper dive. Again, we have more technical webinars that you can attend and get all the technical information that you want. But the purpose of this series is just to have a conversation for you to think about, how can I stand out in the crowd? How can I make a difference? Because as Brad mentioned, the solar coaster is a real thing. And I don't want you to ride the solar coaster. I want you to be able to have a nice journey with our Avalon system. Brad, is there anything that you would like to add before we close?
Nope, I think you covered it all for today.
Well, I thank you guys for tuning into the Avalon Answer. If there's any questions that wasn't answered, we will definitely follow up via email. We will send you the webinar slides, even though we covered a lot of different things not in the webinar, but we will also send you a recording of this video. We appreciate your time, and see us next week, February 27th, where myself and Mr. Brad will discuss how to expand your market. Thank you, and have a great day.